The state of Idaho is shaped like a boot, a cowboy boot. The north is at the top of the boot is the Canadian border. The heel rests on Utah, and the toe faces our direction here in the east. My hometown was just above the ankle. A town of about 3,000 people, and the main street was also a state highway without a single stoplight. So if you wanted to cross the street, which was a state highway, you walked to a curb on a corner and stood for just a few seconds, and all the traffic around you stopped so that you could cross safely. A small town and a friendly little town. My family owned the Western store on Main Street. My grandfather and father were both saddle makers, and we had a store on Main Street, and I was generation 3. When you grow up in a family-owned business, you learn some lessons that maybe kids who didn't grow up in family-owned businesses didn't learn. One of the lessons you learn is there's no such thing as minimum wage for your whole family. When you own your own business, there's not a single federal, state, or regional government agency that guarantees that you're going to make any money at all. There's child labor laws aren't too helpful to you when your dad's the big cowboy telling you you're going to be working on Saturday. I remember one time my job was to clean the toilet, and I had the pumice stone and I was cleaning away, and my dad was in the doorway, and he's a big cowboy, so he filled the doorway behind me, and I heard him say, "Just think, Jeri May, someday this will all be yours." And I didn't have the presence of mind to say, like, beyond me, Dad, or just what I can see right now. But the saddle shop was my favorite place to hang out. I loved being in the saddle shop. I liked being back where my grandfather was tooling saddles, so he'd have the leather laid out, and there would just be this rhythmic tap, 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 tap. I liked working in the saddle shop and hearing our customers tell stories about the ranches and their farms and their families. I liked hanging out with my grandmother in the front of the saddle shop. She was in charge of the retail store. So if you walked into the saddle shop, there'd be this little bell that rang to alert us that you'd arrived. And always when people walked in the front door, they paused and closed their eyes and took a deep breath because the leather smelled glorious. And they'd fill their lungs with leather, and then you would look around and you would see cowboy hats and cowboy boots and moccasins and western shirts and turquoise jewelry and bits and spurs and bridles. And my grandmother, who was this classy cowgirl, would offer to serve you. When I worked for my grandmother, she assured me that idle hands were something, there was just something wrong with them, and I should never have them. And I did get paid at the saddle shop to work for her. I got paid not by the hour, I got paid by the minute. As in, I should be producing every minute. I shouldn't be leaning on a counter. If my girlfriends and boyfriends came in from school, I should be working while I visited with them. I shouldn't be just pausing and stopping because I was getting paid by the minute. My grandparents, who were Generation 1 at the saddle shop, started the business because my grandfather had had polio as a child, couldn't farm and ranch like the other men in his family, so he had learned the trade of saddle making. They started the saddle shop just in time for the Great Depression. So the idea of working hard and not stopping working and not being idle was totally ingrained in my grandparents. When I was with my grandfather, he would visit with our customers, and he would, after our customers would start to leave, he would say to me, "Aren't we lucky, Jeri May? We're so lucky. Those people work so hard for so little, and they choose to do business with us. We're so lucky." As an adult, I would find that there were businesses in the world who don't have that same attitude about customers. But during my childhood, the mantra was, we're so lucky that people give us a chance to serve them. I also learned that there's such a thing as seasonality of business and cash flow. So there are months of the year in your little family-owned business in a small town in north central Idaho where things are going pretty well. Their customers are coming in and they're buying things. So June, July, August, those are pretty good months. Through the fall was good because we had outfitters and guides who we sold things to, so got through hunting season. And now we're late in the fall, we move into November and December, and that's Christmas time. And for retailers, that's really important. And cowboys love their Christmas. So we stayed plenty busy. And then came January. And you can imagine what happens in January in a little town in north central Idaho. And the holidays are over and things get really slow. On this particular day, my grandmother's job that she gave me was to make bows, to replace all the bows we'd used up in the Christmas season. So the job requires just cranking the bow machine. So I am in junior high and I'm cranking the bow machine, and I hear the bell ring at the front of the store. So I peer around to see who's come in. And it's somebody with one of our bags, which is not a good sign if you're in retail. Yeah. And they're bringing something back. And it's the most obnoxious man in town with one of our bags. And he's a little banty rooster of a man, and he stomps up to my grandmother with his bag, and before she can even graciously greet him, he slams the bag on the counter and said, "I want my money back." And my grandmother opens the bag and holds up a pair of Wrangler blue jeans, and she said, "Well, I can see that you've altered these." And he said, "No, I haven't." And one of the reasons he's the most obnoxious man in town is that he just lies all the time. Lie, 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 lie. So my grandmother folds the jeans up, gets money out of the cash register, hands him the money, and as she does, she says, "And I don't want you to ever come into our store again." I can't believe she's saying that to one of our customers in January. He says, "Oh no, I'll keep them, that's okay." And she said, "No, this is the third time you bought something from us, damaged it to where we can't sell it to anybody else, and wanted your money back. So here's your money, don't ever come into our store again." Well, after he left, I walked up to her and I said, "Mimi," I called her Mimi, "I can't believe you talked to a customer that way." And she said, "Honey, we're good people. And there are plenty of good people out there for us to have as customers. He is a stinker, and we don't need him. Now get back to work." The gift my grandmother gave me that day was a gift that has impacted my whole life. The idea that I, and like you, we can be good people, really good people, hardworking people, and have the firm expectation that we're going to be treated with respect. My grandmother taught me the lesson of gracious service and grit. And through my life, as stinkers have tried to come in to my little stinker-free circle that I've created, I reflect back on that day and my grandmother giving me permission to have the expectation that if I am a good person, I should be treated with respect. Someday, when you're looking at a map of the United States of America, I hope you see a state that's shaped like a boot. I hope you glance just above the ankle and think about my grandparents, my grandfather with his attitude of gratitude, and my grandmother with her goodness and her grit.